In winding back the clock to the Obama years, the Biden administration is undoing so much of the good work that President Trump did. One of the more sinister acts has been the State Department's announcement that Israel's control of Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank as they like to call it, does indeed qualify as an occupation. This has been the accepted wisdom of Europe and much of the world for decades, but rarely do any of the politicians or media analyse what they are endorsing as fact. If Judea and Samaria are indeed occupied, then the obvious question is, who is Israel occupying it from? And herein lies the problem. The term West Bank arose because it was the territory situated on the west bank of the Jordan River that was illegally occupied by the state of Jordan after Israel's War of Independence. So is everybody saying that what Israel is doing is an occupation of a previously illegally occupied territory? That doesn't make any sense. Before Jordan claimed it, the area was under the rule of the British Mandate, but they closed up shop and left the area, so Israel can't be occupying it from them. And before that it was under the control of the Turkish Ottoman Empire, but they lost it when they lost World War I to the Allies. And before that, in 1517, the Ottoman Turks took control of the region from the Mamluks, who were Turkish and Circassian slave soldiers headquartered in Egypt. And the Mamluks don't even exist anymore, so they can't want it back. I could go on, but you get the point. Of course, the not-so-subtle contention is that Israel is occupying Palestinian Arab land, but the facts simply don't support this claim. In fact, the territories of Judea and Samaria have never been part of any nation except a Jewish state. Israel regained control of the area in 1967 after the Six-Day War, but the Palestinian Arabs only invented themselves as a people in 1964, so their claim to be the ancient indigenous people of the region rings for rather hollow, especially when they criticise Israel as a colonising occupier. Before 1948, when the State of Israel was born, if you described yourself as Palestinian, then it was generally understood that you were Jewish and lived in mandatory Palestine. Want proof? Before it was the Jerusalem Post, the newspaper was called the Palestine Post. Google it and see what comes up. The Arabs living there at the time considered themselves, well, Arabs, from mainly Syria and Egypt, who migrated to the area in search of better employment, living and educational opportunities for their families. This whole notion that Israel is occupying Palestinian land is a big lie. It's a myth. Yet for decades the Arab and Muslim world, along with the anti-Zionist and I would say anti-Semitic NGOs, have conned the politician and the media into accepting this lie without question. It begs the question, of course, that if the area was indeed always Palestinian, why did they not make any claims against Jordan during the 19 years between 1948 and 1967? But to make matters worse, most Jewish communal organisations have also gone along with this falsehood. The Arab world must be slapping their thighs and laughing into their shawarma and coffee at how gullible the Jewish organisations have been. So let's be honest about it. According to international law, the lands of Judea and Samaria are certainly disputed, but they are not occupied. That means that any resolution to the conflict needs to be negotiated between the parties. Even back in 2014, our Prime Minister Tony Abbott made this very point. Judea and Samaria have been inhabited by Jews since biblical times, even when it was recognised as their land, but controlled by some other power. And the fact is, you can't occupy something you already own. This whole myth of occupation is nothing more than a tool, a charade, to further delegitimise Israel as the nation-state of the Jewish people living on their ancestral homeland. The Australian Jewish Association is the only communal organisation in this country making these points. All the others waffle on with the usual politically correct vagaries of language because they think it helps. It doesn't. Only the truth will result in everybody in that part of the world coexisting in peace and prosperity. And let's be blunt about it. You won't get the truth from our mainstream communal organisations, but you will get it from us. This is Alan Freedman for the Australian Jewish Association.